From the Sports Madness studio in San Antonio, Texas, you are watching Sports Madness here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us today in the Madhouse for episode 11 of Sports Madness. Can you believe we've made it to 11 episodes? I can't. But we're grateful for all of you joining us today. Today we have a very special guest in-house with us, Nikki Roylance, a Kansas City Chiefs super fan and guaranteed Super Bowl watcher, will be joining us today. Nikki, how are things going for you in your neck of the woods?
Well, we're going for the three-peat, so it's a great week.
It is something that, a little bit of history on the line, and it's one of those situations where I think if you're just a casual fan of football, or if you're just in general watching the game without really a rooting interest, you always want to see something that has never happened before, and 3 consecutive Super Bowl victories would certainly fall in that category. So, Nikki, we're just going to kind of start the way we did yesterday with our friend Mike, who joined us. How did you get associated with the Kansas City Chiefs? And what made you decide, I'm just going to go all in on this team right here?
I grew up watching football in my family home. My mom was a diehard Denver Broncos fan. So I grew up watching John Elway years and seeing the Mike Shanahan coaching years were fantastic. And so I've always been a big AFC fan because that was the rule of the house when I was growing up. And that kind of stuck with me even when I grew older. And I was reading an article about Coach Reid, actually, and Andy Reid, and the type of man he was and his coaching. And as I was watching the Kansas City Chiefs and different games, I just was really liking what I was seeing on the field. And so probably back about 2019, 2020, I just switched allegiances. Denver Broncos will always have a piece of my heart, but Kansas City is my team.
All right. Well, and, the Chiefs come into this game with a little bit of history. Rumor has it that their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, has a little bit of experience in these games. This is his 5th Super Bowl in 6 years. And he has an opportunity to do something that no quarterback has ever done before, and that's win 3 consecutive Super Bowls as a starter. As a fan of the Chiefs, when you look, they were in the very first Super Bowl where they lost to Green Bay, and then they won Super Bowl 4, and then they went 50 years between appearances, and then they won Super Bowl 54 against San Francisco in a game that was a really, really good game. And then they were defeated the next year by Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which even to this day sounds weird to say. And then they decided to take a year off to give the rest of the league a chance. And then they've won each of the last 2, and they come in as a slight favorite in this one. As a Chiefs fan, do you go into every season just expecting to win the Super Bowl, or do you go in with a little bit of maybe not trepidation, but just kind of this thought that, okay, the NFL is a really good league. There are 32 professional teams. Anyone could take it.
Well, I think you always go in expecting, especially if you're bringing back a winning team and you're seeing what they're doing in the offseason, that, hey, they're keeping their star players. They've added in some really exciting talent here. I am going to sneeze. I apologize. So sorry. That they're bringing in some great talent. They have a great team that has a great chemistry and a great support. So you have hope. There's always that hope and always that expectation of, my boys are going to do it again this year. We've got a good formula. We've got a good chemistry going. But however, there are 31 other teams on the NFL, and the NFL is the cream of the crop when it comes to American football. You have all of the high schools and then the colleges. And so if you make it to the NFL, you're not a slump on the floor. They're not taking Joe Brown, who's played for 2 days and now he's joining the NFL. It's going to be someone who's talented and a top athlete, whether they are a starter or whether they're a second string or third string. They are there's great talent in every team. And so there's always that chance that alchemy and that magic is going to hit a team. I mean, look at what the Commanders have done this year. Look at what the Broncos have done this year, and what can change in just the course of the season. And so there's always that hope, but there's always that realistic nerve on butterfly when it comes to game day.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned the Commanders. Actually talked about this with our guest Mike that was on yesterday, how they really kind of came out of nowhere this year. They were not expected to do much at all, and they came in and made it to the NFC Championship game. And that was not expected. I think they're going to be set at the quarterback position for quite some time. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be their guy, and if he can avoid the sophomore slump, I think that he's got a chance to be truly great. But we're not here today to talk about the Commanders. We're here to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs come in 15-2 in the regular season. A pair of wins in the playoff season. In the playoffs, they have a chance to set the NFL record for most wins in a season. If they win the Super Bowl, that would give them their 18th win. They'd be the first team to ever win 18 games in a regular season and postseason combined. And the Chiefs 15-2, and I really only count one of those two losses because the other one was the game where they set in Kansas City High School to play their game for them. That week 18 loss to Denver. That kind of set some people on edge a little bit. My thing is, take care of your business and don't worry about whatever someone else has to do. If you have to put your faith in what another team does, you're already on the losing end. So they only lost one game, 30-21 at Buffalo. And then they came in, they played Houston 23-14 victory. They played Buffalo 32-29 victory. Both of those were very good games, very entertaining games. And now they play Philadelphia, which also promises to be an entertaining game. Talk to me a little bit about your view of this season, kind of as it went through the season. Was it a roller coaster for you? Were you like, okay, this is a cakewalk?
I mean, I love my Chiefs, but they were so stressful this year. There were so many injuries, from Rashid Rice to Hollywood Brown, Mahomes' ankle again, and so many different times that you were thinking, I don't know if we're going to pull it out this time, as we were losing our offensive line like flies, and then even key members of our defensive line. And so it was a very stressful, hard-fought year. I know that we had just come off of winning the second Super Bowl in a row. So there was a big target on the Chiefs' back for obvious reason. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And the Kansas City Chiefs came in with this reputation of, hey, we've won 2 years in a row. We're the best. We're the ones you want to beat if you want to be there in the Super Bowl. And so this has been a dirty year, having to fight and play and fight against just even the rumors and in all of the backlash in the media of the conspiracy theories of refs, and not knowing from week to week, is Hollywood Brown going to be okay? Or is Mahomes okay? What's happening with Chris Jones? When are we ever going to fix the tackle issue? And so it was definitely a heart palpitation year that the Chiefs gave us, but you always had that faith that they know how to win. When the chips are down, Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey, and they just know how to pull out that win and win whatever it takes.
Going back 2 seasons, the Chiefs have won 17 consecutive games that are 7 points or fewer on the final score, which as a casual fan of football is very entertaining. But I would imagine as a fan of the Chiefs, you would root for a 41-10 game every now and then.
It would be nice to not stress some Sunday and just be like, you know what? Let's just cream the other team. I mean, you just would love to have that non-stressful game, but you have to admit it's been an entertaining season.
Well, and Nikki, I hate to break it to you, but I don't feel like this week is going to be that week where you just demolish the opposition either. I feel like this is going to be a very entertaining game. I feel like going in, that this is going to be a low-scoring affair. I think that this is going to be a week where the defenses kind of shine. we excuse me, we saw the game against Houston, where the Chiefs were outplayed in the game, but they won based on their special teams play and just being able to have a big play when it counts. You look at the Buffalo game, and again, they were outplayed, but they ended up on the right side of the scoreboard. So now you go into a game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles have just been smashing people all season long. And as a Chiefs fan, I imagine you go in with a little bit of confidence, thinking, okay, if we can keep this thing close, we'll pull it out in the end. But if you had to point to one thing in this game that does give you a little bit of concern, what is it?
The Eagles have had something magic this season. I mean, they've got some really good players on their team. I mean, Barkley is fantastic. So we need to shut that down. However, our defensive line is incredible. Like, we've got a great defensive coordinator when we're firing on all cylinders, which with the return of so many of our players and so many of our starters that have been out for a vast majority of the season and they're back now with postseason. I mean, we were just down 3 players. If you're looking at our injury report, I mean, Rashid Rice is healing and he's out, but he's coming back next season. I feel like there is some trepidation looking at just what the Eagles have been able to do. I mean, and you can't ignore Barkley, but it's also a confidence of knowing that my boys know how to play when the chips are down.
I would like to take a minute and kind of talk about the Chiefs defense for a second. I think kind of an unheralded or under-heralded group, rather. For me, when it comes right down to it, I think that I have to circle the play of George Karlaftis as really just kind of being, something that has been a catalyst for that defense. He has 3 sacks in a couple of games, 3 tackles for loss. He has 9 tackles total. You've got Shamari Connor, you've got Tranquil, you've got Reed, all really pulling their weight on the defensive side. Excuse me. You have on special teams, I think maybe the most underrated player on the team is Nico Remigio. I mean, he has been terrific. And when he went down in the second quarter against Buffalo, it kind of felt like a turning point a little bit. And then when he came back in the game, it was like, okay, the Chiefs had righted that ship just a little bit. You have to, feel fairly confident when you go in knowing that you have Harrison Butker in your back pocket, who's now healthy. But he hasn't been tested. His longest field goal is 36 yards. And so that's something that you've got to kind of be a little bit concerned with until you realize that there's a reason that his longest field goal is 36 yards, and that's because the Chiefs are getting touchdowns. And so that's not too much. You've got Mahomes completing, and these are all just, postseason stats, but you've got Mahomes completing his passes at a 67% clip. You have Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, who are both contributing on the rushing side of things. If you had to point to one person on the Chiefs and say, this person has to play well, this one person has to play well in order for us to win the game, and his name is not Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, I was like, it has to be Mahomes.
Right. His name is not Patrick Mahomes. You have to point to one player. Who do you pick?
Oh, that's such a hard thing. I feel like there's so many weapons that when they're all firing, it's such a great thing, which is what I love about the Chiefs is you don't have just 1 or 2 star players. Because if that were the case, then we'd be a flash in the pan. We would have won Super Bowl and then we're done, right? We wouldn't be going for the 3rd year. without players. I mean, without the magic of Kelsey and Mahomes and that understanding of each other, even when Kelsey is having legitimately one of his worst seasons in a long time, if not his worst, arguably maybe his worst season yet. Just that understanding and knowledge of awareness of where they're at on the field. Because he's such a big heart for the team too. And he's such a natural a natural leader in the locker room, leading up into the game, on the field. When Kelsey's in it, he's there. But you have players like Tooney, who they have switched around, and now they've got him in left tackle, and he is, I mean, he's not superstar, everyone's talking about him, but that man is excelling, and no matter where they're throwing him. And he's switched from left guard to left tackle and been able to jump in. You've got Worthy, who stepped up, Pacheco, who's jumped in. There are so many different players. I can't pick just one to say this is our key, because I feel like even when we lose one, knock on wood, we're not doing that. But even when one steps out of the play of field, we have so many weapons in our pocket. We've got Gray, the other tight end that people don't talk about as much, but he's nailing his catches.
We did. I did this with our guest yesterday, and he didn't get his. So let's see if we can get a Chiefs victory over the Eagles early on in this one.
Okay.
Without looking, who is the leading receiver in the playoffs for Kansas City?
Oh, heavens. I probably don't know off the top of my head.
It's Xavier Worthy.
I was about to say, I'm thinking Worthy because Brown's been out, but Worthy has stepped up. He's a mighty underdog. Little guy out there, fast as heck. And
he is extremely fast. He leads the team with 11 receptions, 130 yards. He has a touchdown. He's averaging 65 yards a game in the playoffs and 154 yards after catch. And so he has 11 catches. 8 of those have gone for first downs. So if he gets the ball, something has happened. It was just like for the Eagles, Dallas Goedert is their leading receiver. And you never would know that. But he's kind of their guy. Xavier Worthy, the rookie out of Texas, and we won't hold that against him. But the rookie from the University of Texas, just being fantastic. The leading tackler. Want to take a guess at who the leading tackler is?
Is it Tranquil?
It is.
Tranquil.
So yeah, he's got 14 tackles in 2 games. Of course, Kareem Hunt, the leading rusher. Then you've got Mahomes, Pacheco, Worthy, and I think it's interesting. Samaje Perine has more receiving yards than he has rushing yards. He doesn't even have a carry in the postseason, but he has 17 receiving yards. So, yeah, and I think people don't realize just how deep the Chiefs are on the receiving side. You've got Kelsey, you've got Worthy, you've got Juju, Hollywood Brown, Noah Gray, you mentioned earlier, Isaiah Pacheco coming out. Say again. I
mean, Noah Gray is 8th among the 37 qualified tight ends overall. Right. So he's a star.
Right. And then
getting next to Travis Kelsey.
Right. And then you have, Isaiah Pacheco coming out of the backfield. The Chiefs have DeAndre Hopkins. And that guy's a Hall of Famer who's completely silent. And by the way, let's just throw Kareem Hunt in there for no reason and see how that turns out as well. So, offensively, the Chiefs are loaded. You have to look at the Chiefs, and even though they're 15-2, elements of their game have kind of made them look less impressive than they are this season. And I think a lot of it has to do with the number of close games that they have. The number of one-score games that they've been in. what's something that you point to and say the Chiefs need to tighten this up for Sunday?
I feel like they need to continue working on the left tackle. They're letting people break through the line to get to Mahomes. And so continuing to sharpen up that offensive left side tackle and breaking that line, and just the communication and that magic in between them. If they can keep that connection, keep focused on progressing down the field and all of that. If I really like what they've done with Tooney recently, where they've replaced him in. I mean, it allowed Mahomes to run in 2 touchdowns in the last game that they were in. And so they can continue doing that. They also have to keep the magic going with the defensive line. I mean, they've done such a great job in presenting a strong defensive front. And I feel like in the last, like some of the games that people were pointing at, the Broncos game, some of the other wins, they were kind of shielding their cards and not breaking out the massive plays and not thinking necessarily about each short-term battle, but about the war. Your goal is not, let's win each individual battle. The goal is to win the Super Bowl. And the Kansas City Chiefs knew they had to do enough to get into the playoffs and what the end goal is. And the end goal is that Super Bowl ring. Right. And so I think as long as they continue focusing and putting their attention on the field and moving that ball forward, they will win.
You mentioned something earlier, and I do want to kind of dwell on it a little bit.
Okay.
You talked about if we can stop Saquon Barkley. That's a tall order. That's a tall order. He had over 2,000 yards in the regular season, and he's picking right up where he left off in the postseason. The one thing that I will say is that the Eagles had a much easier path to the Super Bowl than did the Chiefs.
100%.
Houston was a good team. Buffalo was a good team. Both of those teams made the short list of teams that were expected to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC. And so really the 3 teams when the season started that everyone said these 3 teams are going to be the teams in the end were the 2 teams that Kansas City played and Kansas City.
Yeah.
And so, so they did have a much more difficult path to get to the Super Bowl. However, Saquon Barkley is a special talent. And, and the Eagles have, I'll say it, and I know you don't want to hear it, probably one of the best offensive lines in league history this year. They're a very, very good offensive line. They made good lines look really bad. And so it's going to be incumbent upon the Chiefs' defensive line, but I think also the defensive scheme is going to be really, really important. How well are they going to be able to disguise it? Because they really can't just put 8 in the box, 9 in the box, and tell Jalen Hurts, beat us with your arm, because he can. If you get enough of those one-on-one situations. But on the flip side, if they can shut down Saquon Barkley, you really have to like your team's chances.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you've got some star players there, right? Saquon Barkley is forgive my pronunciation. He's amazing. No lie. I mean, he has the misfortune of playing for the NFC, but he is incredible. However, there have been other great players out there that have come up against the Chiefs and lost. You have to admit that Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks on the field right now, regardless of how many calls that he gets in his favor from the ref. Which, let's be honest, look at the statistics, are so much higher than what people say the Chiefs are getting. And that's just a numerical fact. But he's amazing. He's truly very talented, and he was able to be stopped by the Chiefs when we were all healthy in there. We are healthy. Like, there are very few players that are out, knock on wood, for Sunday for the Chiefs. I think we definitely have a flying shot. I mean, this is what the guys have been preparing for all season. This is what we're looking at for. This is what we've been training for. And I don't think we've seen their best work yet.
And that's always what you aim for is, you want to peak at the right time. And it does certainly look like these two teams are peaking at the right time. Walk me through what you're expecting to see on Sunday.
On Sunday, I'm expecting to see, let's throw it out there. I'm expecting to see great fashion from my girls, because we can't admit that the Taylor Swift magic will help. I expect my guys to turn it out. I think Mahomes is going to sparkle. We're going to see that playoffs magic. I think we're going to see a return of the old Kelsey coming back in. They've had 2 weeks off to rest and to fight and prepare and focus on this. I think we're going to see Huntworthy continue to knock it out of the park. I think Butker is going to be stronger and better than ever. I think DeAndre Hopkins is living in this moment, and really, I don't think any of them are taking it for granted. I mean, they're coming in as, we've all seen the memes, they are coming in as the hated team, right? They are as blasted against in the media like the Brady era Patriots. There's a lot of memes that are anti-Chiefs, and so there's a lot of negative pressure and a lot of that attention on them. And the good thing about the Chiefs is they know how to turn it out under that pressure. You've got Coach Reed that has, I mean, what are his statistics? We'd have to look it up again, but he is one of the top NFL coaches for the number of wins. And didn't he just celebrate his 300th win? If I remember that correctly. So they know how to take the pressure and they know how to put it into the work and silence their critics on the field.
Well,
to play their hearts out.
Well, I hate to keep referencing the interview from yesterday, but you're hitting a lot of the same points that Mike hit. Andy Reid is the winningest coach in Chiefs history and in Eagles history.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to him a little bit about it. I was like, okay, so how do Eagles fans view Andy Reid in 2025? And he said it's all respect. He said he's still beloved in Philadelphia. I know he's beloved in Kansas City. He's kind of beloved just around the league in general. I don't know that I've heard anyone have anything negative to say about Andy Reid. And from what I know about him personally, there's just not a whole lot there to dislike. For Andy, and I think Andy Reid is definitely one of those people that he is an X factor in this game. You have to think, like, at the NFL level, the coaching comes into play, but I don't know necessarily that it really decides all that many games. I think Andy Reid is an exception to that rule. He's a good enough coach that he can definitely decide games by his play calling. Oh, and by the way, he's playing chess while everyone else is playing tic-tac-toe. I think that he has such a solid understanding of the game. He's on the Lavelle Edwards coaching tree. And so, I mean, greatness comes from greatness, and it just happens there. I do want to kind of talk about some comparative statistics. You have Jalen Hurts coming into the game. He's completing about 75% of his passes on the season, 2,900 yards, 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, similar numbers, completing about 70% of his passes, 3,928 yards, 26 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. So just talking about the quarterback comparison alone, Jalen Hurts threw more than 200 fewer passes than did Patrick Mahomes this year, because in the Eagles' backfield, they have Saquon Barkley, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting for them. Hurts doesn't have to throw it as much. However, both quarterbacks are gifted with their feet as well as their arms. And so let's just say that both running backs are neutralized.
Oof. Knock on wood for that one.
Well, right. I say, let's just say both running backs are neutralized. Saquon Barkley runs for like 29 yards and Kareem Hunt runs for like 31.
Okay.
And so like both defenses just absolutely shut down the running game. Do you like your chances or does that worry you a little bit?
I feel like Mahomes has not thrown for the big explosive plays that we saw in the early half of his career because people know he can do it. And they changed the way they fight it, the way they tackle him and the way they play against him because they know his strengths in that area. And Mahomes had to adapt and get tricky and learn to run and learn to do the short, quick passes, the behind the back passes, and the things like the short, continuing the ball moving, but little short passes instead of the Hail Marys that we've seen other players do because they know Mahomes is a threat. He wouldn't have the reputation, he wouldn't have the stats he would, and he wouldn't be listed in the same name as Brady and Manning and Joe Montana and these great quarterbacks over the past years if he didn't have the statistic and the arm and the skills to back it up. I don't worry about Mahomes turning it out as a quarterback. I mean, no offense against the quarterback for the Eagles, but Mahomes has something special, and I don't worry about him because he has known time and time again that he can throw the ball down to Worthy, down to Hunt, down to Kelsey, and put it exactly where he needs it to be.
I think you're right, and I think what it comes down to ultimately is Mahomes just has more weapons at his disposal. I think is what it comes down to.
Yes.
For the record, I don't think I think that the running backs for both teams are going to show out. I think it's going to be more of a running game than a passing game. It wouldn't surprise me if neither quarterback throws for 200 yards in this game. I think both of the running backs are going to have a field day in this one. Something that I do note from Patrick Mahomes is he has had a little bit of the dropsies here in the playoffs. He has had a propensity to drop the football. Usually he recovers it. Sometimes he does not. Something that the Eagles do really well. Well, the Chiefs also do really well or force turnovers, but something that the Eagles do really well. They force turnovers and then they follow it up with 10 and 11-minute drives. And so that's something that I think as a Chiefs fan, we do need to watch out for is if it gets a situation where the Eagles have a 10-minute drive that ends in a touchdown, and then they force a turnover and get the ball right back. You're talking the Chiefs may get one possession per quarter. And so you have to look at those situations and think, okay, because the Chiefs have proven that they can do the lightning strikes, but they really haven't proven that they can do the long sustained drives. They can do long drives, but they don't take up a lot of time. Even their 8-9 play drives, because they go so quick, they're talking 3 minutes and then the ball goes back. And that was kind of a little bit of area of concern in their game against Buffalo was they got that ball with like 4.5 minutes left, drove all the way down the field, got a field goal out of it, but then gave Josh Allen 3 minutes left. And everyone was like, uh-oh. And then they forced the turnover on downs, get the ball back, win the game. When you look at this game, you look at everything that goes into it, the back and forth. Neither one of these teams has had to play from behind very often. And so you do kind of question a little bit, and it's for both sides. And we talked about this before. How do the Chiefs respond if Philadelphia goes up 24-7?
I think you forget the fact that Mahomes changes when you get 10 points behind. There's the finger magic. Something churns on him, and he churns it out. The Chiefs can turn out. I don't worry about them getting that far behind, but at the same time, we haven't seen them go full bloodthirsty. We've seen them controlled. We've seen them come out and fight hard and not let them come that way. But there is a killer instinct. We've seen them turn it on a little bit and get laser focused in the playoffs, especially. And when we get into the fourth quarter and we're behind by a touchdown, we're behind by a field goal, you see a hint of it come through, and they do what they need to get the win. So nobody's going into the Super Bowl wanting to lose and not caring whether they win or lose, just happy to play the game, right? But they want that history. To be the first team in the Super Bowl history to win a three-peat, 3 consecutive years, to have that history on your side would be amazing. And I feel like if they get behind, it's just going to push that drive and that desire even more. Mahomes has been a little bit distracted in postseason. He has not had his best season. He's not had the communication that he is used to having with Kelsey. He's not had the communication with Hollywood Brown as well. And Pacheco coming back and having that connection and that it was starting to tighten up again in the postseason. And it'll be interesting to see with these 2 weeks off and with the practices to see where they're at and to see that unification again. We can't ignore the fact that Mahomes just had a baby. And so now the stress of that is gone. Now he can focus on this game. And it's not that worry about Brittany and what's going on at home, because baby's here, everyone's fine, and he can just lightning focus on this game this weekend and get being who he is.
To say surprised would be an understatement. It blew my mind that Travis Kelce only has 3 touchdowns this year. That blew my mind that he has not. I mean, he's still been prolific. You know, he had in the regular season had 97 receptions, 823 yards. But yeah, only 3 touchdowns. And so like that kind of surprised me. It surprised me a whole lot. He's still the leading receiver for the Chiefs in over the course of the season. And then you've got on the other side for the Eagles, you have A.J. Brown, 67 receptions, 1,079 yards, 7 touchdowns. The weapons are there on the other side too. And in a game like this, you don't get to the Super Bowl by luck, and you don't get there by accident. And that's kind of one of the great things about the NFL playoff is 99.5% of the time, it's the 2 best teams in the league, unless the 2 best teams in the league are in the same conference. You have the best team in the AFC and the best team in the NFC, and they meet in the Super Bowl. And I look at this matchup, and it intrigues me because I feel like the teams couldn't really be any more different. You have Mahomes, and that team is going to rely on their outside speed, and they're going to rely on the quick strike, and they're going to rely on those things. The Eagles are going to rely on smash mouth, 4 yards in a cloud of dust. And so really, really differing styles coming into the Super Bowl. And it's going to be an interesting juxtaposition. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. I'm going to do a fill in the blank with you. I'll say a statement, and I will give you a fill in the blank, and you fill in the blank. The Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl if blank.
Pigs fly.
So you don't give the Eagles any chance in this game.
The Eagles, you can't underestimate the Eagles. They would not have achieved the season that they did if they weren't talented. However, I mean, you're looking at Kelsey, you're saying he's having one of his hardest years. He's not turning out the numbers this year. But at the same time, he's breaking records right and left this year. He beat Tony Gonzalez. He was the fastest tight end in NFL history to reach 12,000 receiving yards. Part of the reason Kelsey has not had there's 2 reasons, in my opinion, that Kelsey has not had the season statistics that he's had in the past. Okay, I'll throw in a third. 1, he is getting older. I mean, he's 35 now, and that is a little bit older for tight ends. specifically in the NFL league, because it's such a hard hitting position. Number two, they know he's a threat. People are blocking Travis Kelce more. You're looking at the games, you're watching them, they're double teaming him and leaving Matthew Gray open. The other reason, in an interview earlier in the year, Mahomes was watching reels and watching the footage from the games, from the Kansas City games, from the past seasons, and going through and watching what he needed to tighten up, what he needed to do better, and looking at the number of times that he threw to Kelce and Gray was completely open. And how often he's like, at least half the time, Gray was there and available, and I threw to Kelce. And so Gray received a lot more this year because they've made a concentrated effort of, hey, we need to use all the weapons in our team. Let's not be predictable. I think if our hearts aren't in it, the Eagles have a greater chance, but I really think that the Chiefs can pull it out. I think they have the desire. They definitely have the talent. They have the knowledge, and they have the skill set. We just need the alchemy to hit. And we know how to make that happen.
Okay. The Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl if blank.
Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl if they just go out there and do their job. They know how to do this. They've done it before. They've done it the past 2 years before. They just need to stay focused and play the way they know how to play.
So I like Super Bowl rematches. I think those are fun. And this is a Super Bowl rematch. I mean, this is not the first time that these two teams have met in the Super Bowl. And last time it worked out fairly well for the Chiefs. I anticipate that this is going to be a better game than that one was. I think the entertainment value on this game is going to be really high. So give me your prediction for a final score. What do you think? What do you think? How do you think this ends?
I am not the person to ask for this. I am not a sports gambler myself. Like, I will bet dinner or cookies or whatever. So I am not your Las Vegas specialist. So this is nowhere near scientific, but I feel like both teams are going to put points on the board, but I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think they're both going to be probably in the 20s. Maybe 21-28 or even 28, 31, 32. Like, I think it's going to be a very close game. I think we're going to see field goals. I think we're going to see attempts for 2-point conversions. I think we're going to see touchdowns from both teams, but I think it's going to stay under 50 points overall.
Will we end up with an overtime debacle like we had before when the Chiefs played the 49ers and the 49ers picked wrong on the coin toss?
That was a beautiful moment.
I loved Patrick Mahomes' response. He was like, they didn't know the rules. And so yeah. I'm inclined to agree with you that it's going to be a low-scoring, close game. I think if you haven't had a chance to watch, Mike Kapuscinski picked the Eagles to win 27-17, but he was in agreement that it was going to be a low-scoring game, that it wasn't going to be one where like one team jumps way out and anything like that. So it is like everyone that I've talked to on both sides of this are going in thinking, okay, this is going to be a good game. This is not going to be a boring Super Bowl. It's not going to be like some of those, 55-10 Super Bowls that we've had in years past. I agree.
We're already having a better game.
If you're on the right side of the 55-10. But we won't talk about that.
No.
All right. So plans for Super Bowl Sunday. Do you have a Super Bowl party planned?
Yes, there's a big group of friends that we're getting together and doing the full spread, watching the game together. It's going to be a lot of fun, even though half of them are Eagles.
You can't be fraternizing with the enemy. That's just not.
We listen and we don't judge.
We nod our heads and agree.
Nope, perfect. It's okay. You're entitled to your wrong opinion. So,
Fantastic. All right. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us in the Madhouse today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you in here. Thank you for your support of the program as well. Until next time, this is David Vaughn along with Nikki Roylance reminding you that there are good ships, wood ships, and ships that sail the seas, but the best ships are friendships. May they always be. Until next time, take care and God bless.